My wife handed me an ultrasound photo at my homecoming ceremony in front of 600 soldiers of a baby that couldn't possibly be mine. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up to the moment everything shattered. The thing about military homecoming ceremonies is they're designed to be perfect. They have to be. After 9 months in Afghanistan, after watching your guys take fire, after carrying wounded brothers to medevac birds, after nights you don't sleep because the silence is worse than the mortars. You come home to formation and flags and families on bleachers. The battalion stands at attention. The colors snap in the wind. Your wife runs to you while cameras flash. It's supposed to be the moment that makes it all worth it. November 8th, 2025, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I stood on the parade ground in my dress uniform, and 600 soldiers from my battalion filled the field behind me. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Ryan O'Brien, third-generation Army Special Forces, 38 years old, and until that moment I thought I knew what sacrifice meant. The applause was deafening when they called my name. My mother, Maggie, stood in the front row of the bleachers, her hands pressed to her mouth, crying the way she'd cried when my father came home from Vietnam 40 years ago. My son Ryan, 13 years old, wearing my old Army jacket that's still too big for him, he was jumping up and down, waving an American flag that was taller than he was. And Jessica, my wife of 13 years. She broke from the family section and ran across the field, her blonde hair catching the sunlight, that smile I'd pictured 1,000 times in my bunk in Kandahar. She wore the blue dress I loved, the one that matched her eyes. When she reached me, she threw her arms around my neck, and for half a second, everything was exactly how I'd imagined it. Then she pulled back slightly and pressed something into my palm. "I have a surprise," she whispered against my ear. I looked down, a small blue box, Tiffany blue, white ribbon tied perfectly. I could feel something shifting inside when I tilted it, something light, delicate. The ribbon was satin, smooth between my fingers. "Open it later," she said, loud enough for the families nearby to hear, "when we're alone." But her eyes said she couldn't wait. Her eyes said she was about to burst. Behind us, the battalion colors snapped in the November wind, that heavy nylon flag that had been with us through 3 deployments, still showing the brown stains from Kandahar where I'd helped carry Martinez after he took a round. The fabric made that distinctive sharp sound, like a gunshot but softer. That sound meant home. That sound meant safe. I scanned the formation out of habit. You never stop counting your guys. And that's when I saw him. 3rd row, eyes forward. Captain Derek James Sullivan. 29 years old, infantry officer, one of my company commanders. He stood perfectly still, jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping even from 30 feet away. While everyone else smiled and clapped, Derek looked like he was facing a firing squad. I tucked that observation away later. The ceremony ended with the national anthem. Ryan crashed into me the second we were dismissed, nearly knocking me over. He's 13, but still small for his age, all elbows and energy. "Dad, you're home! You're really home!" I buried my face in his hair. He smelled like teenage boy, body spray, trying to cover gym class, a hint of the coconut shampoo Jessica buys. "I'm home, buddy. I'm home." "Come on, everyone's waiting." He grabbed my hand and dragged me toward where my mother stood with Jessica. That's when Jessica pressed the Tiffany box into my hand again. "Go ahead," she said, breathless. "Open it, please." My mother watched, her hand on Ryan's shoulder. A small crowd of family members and soldiers had gathered, sensing something important was happening. Jessica's smile was so wide it looked painful. I untied the ribbon. It made a soft whisper as the satin slid free. Inside the box, wrapped in tissue paper, was a pregnancy test. The digital kind, still showing the result in the little window, pregnant. And underneath it, a note in Jessica's looping handwriting, "Our miracle baby, V." The world tilted, just slightly, just enough. "We're pregnant," Jessica announced, and my mother gasped, and Ryan's eyes went huge, and suddenly there were hands on my back, voices congratulating me, Jessica wrapping herself around me again. I managed to smile. I managed to say, "That's amazing," in a voice that sounded almost normal. I managed to hug her back while my mind did math I didn't want it to do. 9 months. I'd been gone 9 months. Left April 2nd. It's November 8th. 7 months, 6 days. But buried in that tissue paper was another piece of paper, a thermal print that smelled faintly of medical antiseptic. I pulled it out while Jessica was hugging my mother. An ultrasound photo. Grainy black and white, a tiny spine, a round skull, and at the top, stamped in blue ink, Womack Army Medical Center. 16 weeks, 16 weeks. I was in Kandahar 16 weeks ago. The welcome home dinner happened at our quarters on base. Family housing, standard military issue, walls so thin you can hear your neighbor's TV. My mother had made her famous pot roast, the smell filling the small kitchen with something that was supposed to mean comfort. Ryan set the table the way I'd taught him before I deployed, precise corners on the napkins like hospital corners on a military bunk. Jessica moved through the space, touching everything, the flowers in the center of the table, the candles she'd lit, my arm every time she passed. The ultrasound photo sat in the center of my plate. I couldn't stop looking at the date stamp. "Tom?" My mother's voice cut through my thoughts. "Are you okay? You look pale." "Just tired, Mom. Long flight." I forced a smile and picked up the photo, studying it like I was admiring it. The thermal paper was that slick, waxy kind that curls at the edges. You could feel the medical grade quality of it. Expensive, official, undeniable. "This is incredible, Jess. When did you find out?" 3 weeks ago. She slid into the chair beside me, her hand finding mine on the table. "I wanted to wait to tell you in person. I wanted to see your face." "Well, I'm shocked," I said, and that was true. I mean, after the miscarriages, I thought, "I know." Her voice dropped, intimate. "The doctor said it's a miracle. After everything we went through, after we decided to..." She stopped herself, glanced at Ryan, then my mother. "After we made the decision to stop trying. After I had a vasectomy." That's what she meant. 3 years ago, after her second miscarriage nearly destroyed her, after weeks of her begging me to make sure we'd never have to go through that pain again, I'd had a vasectomy. It was supposed to be a gift, a way to protect her from more loss. So tell me how this baby exists. "Dad?" Ryan's voice pulled me back. He was grinning so wide his braces showed. "This is so cool. I'm going to be a big brother. I mean, I'm 13, so I'll be like 16 when the baby's really doing stuff, but still. Will it be a boy? Can we teach him to wrestle?" "Or her," Jessica corrected, laughing. "Could be a girl." Either way. Ryan's face was pure joy. "Will you teach them to be a soldier like you taught me, Dad?" The question hung in the air. My mother was watching me carefully now, her eyes sharp the way they get when she knows something's wrong. Jessica squeezed my hand. "We'll see, buddy," I managed. Got a lot of time to figure that out. But my mind was doing the math again. April 2nd to September, month 5 of deployment. I was in Kandahar. I called home twice that month, once from the IFAB, once from a convoy stop where the satellite connection kept cutting out. Both times Jessica said everything was fine, Ryan was fine. She missed me so much. I looked across the table at my wife. Her eyes were bright, expectant, waiting for me to say something more, waiting for me to celebrate. "This is wonderful news," my mother said into the silence. She reached over and touched Jessica's hand. "A baby. Oh, Tom, can you believe it?" "No," I said quietly. "I really can't." 2 hours later, I sat in my truck in the parking lot outside battalion headquarters, my phone in one hand, that ultrasound photo in the other. My right hand was in my pocket, fingers wrapped around something else, a deployment challenge coin Jessica had given me at the ceremony. bronze, heavy, custom made. On one side it said 9 months without you in script. On the other, my unit crest. The edges were rough enough to bite into your palm if you squeezed hard enough. The passenger door opened. Command Sergeant Major Robert McAllister slid into the seat, a stainless steel flask in his hand. Mac is 51, built like a fire hydrant, with a face that's seen 3 combat tours and knows how to read every expression. He's been my right hand for 12 years. He didn't say anything, just unscrewed the cap of his flask. The metal made a small squeak and held it out to me. The whiskey smell was sharp in the cold November air. I shook my head. On duty. Sir, you just got back from 9 months in hell. Nobody's on duty tonight. He took a drink himself, the liquid sloshing quietly in the metal container. You want to tell me why you look like someone died? I held up the ultrasound photo. The dome light of the truck made the image glow slightly. Jessica's pregnant. Mac's face didn't change. Congratulations? She's 16 weeks. He did the math as fast as I had. I watched his expression shift from confusion to understanding to something harder. Sir, I left April 2nd. It's November 8th. 7 months, 6 days. I pulled up my phone calculator, even though I didn't need to. The numbers were burned into my brain. She's 16 weeks. That's 4 months. Month 5 of deployment. I was in Kandahar. The flask stopped halfway to Mac's mouth. Jesus Christ, sir. There's more. I pulled medical records from my jacket pocket, papers I'd grabbed from our home office safe while Jessica was in the shower. The paper was heavier than normal copy paper, that official government weight. I had a vasectomy 3 years ago after her second miscarriage. She begged me to do it, said she couldn't handle another loss. Mac set the flask on the dashboard. It made a soft metallic sound against the plastic. So, this baby isn't mine, can't be mine, medically impossible. I clicked the worry stone in my pocket, a smooth piece of blue glass I'd carried since my first deployment, rolling it between my fingers. The glass was cool, almost cold. So tell me, Mac, how exactly is this possible? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, Sir, I need to tell you something. I've been sitting on it, waiting for the right time. He picked up his flask again, but didn't drink, just held it, turning it in his hands. The dent in the side from a convoy attack in 2009 caught the light. Captain Sullivan was at your quarters. A lot. My hand tightened on the worry stone. Define a lot. During deployment, he was assigned as family readiness liaison. Checking on families, making sure everyone had what they needed while the battalion was deployed. That's normal duty. Yeah. Mac's voice was careful. Normal is once, maybe twice, during a 9-month deployment. Sullivan was there damn near every week. The stone clicked between my fingers, a nervous rhythm. How do you know? My wife mentioned it, said Jessica talked about him at the FRG meetings, how helpful he was, how he really went above and beyond. Mac looked at me directly. Then I checked, called a buddy at the gate. Sullivan logged visitor reports every time he went to your place. A protocol. How many times? Sir, how many times, Mac? He took a breath. 23 times, always evening visits. Always stayed 2 to 3 hours. The stone clicked faster. 23 times, 2 to 3 hours each. I tried to picture it, my quarters, Jessica letting him in, offering coffee, talking about deployment stress and how hard it was being alone. Ryan in his room doing homework, completely unaware. The nights you couldn't call from Kandahar, Mac continued quietly. I checked the logs. Sullivan was there within an hour, like he was waiting for confirmation you couldn't reach her. I closed my eyes. Month 5. That was June. The satellite went down for 2 weeks. I was on patrol for most of it, living in a forward operating base with spotty communication at best. When I finally got through, Jessica said she was fine. Better than fine. She joined a book club. She was keeping busy. There's something else. I opened the Tiffany box again, pulled out the challenge coin. The bronze was dull in the truck's dome light, but the engraving was clear. 9 months without you. I turned it over in my palm, feeling the weight of it. She gave me this today. 9 months without you. But the baby was conceived in month 5, not month 9. Max said nothing. What was there to say? I squeezed the coin hard enough that the rough edges bit into my palm, hard enough that I felt skin split. I spent 9 months in Kandahar, kept my guys alive. Martinez took a bullet that was meant for me. I carried him 3 miles with his blood all over my uniform. Rodriguez broke his leg on patrol. I stayed with him under fire until medevac arrived. I did my job, Mac. I held the line. Yes, sir, you did. And I came home to this. I held up the ultrasound photo again. The thermal paper crinkled slightly in my grip. 16 weeks, month 5, mathematical impossibility. So tell me, who the hell is Captain Sullivan? Mac's jaw worked. He's an infantry officer, good service record, family's from here. His father's one of the founding members of the church on base. Been here for generations. Married? No, sir. Single. 29 years old, ambitious, wants to make major by 31. Of course he does. I threw the challenge coin onto the dashboard. It made a solid metallic clink. The sound seemed too loud in the confined space. You know what the worst part is? I trusted him. I put him in charge of family readiness. I specifically chose him because his eval said he was dedicated to supporting the battalion family structure. Sir, he was supporting my wife, all right. I leaned my head back against the seat. The headrest smelled like old leather and military-grade cleaning products. My 13-year-old son is in there right now, excited about being a big brother. My mother's probably already planning baby showers, and my wife... My voice cracked slightly. I stopped, breathed, controlled it. My wife thinks I'm going to adopt another man's baby. Act like it's mine. 9 months without you. Like it's some kind of romantic gesture. Mac picked up his flask, unscrewed it again, and this time just handed it to me without a word. I took it. The metal was cold, the whiskey warm. It burned going down, which was exactly what I needed. What are you going to do, sir? I looked at the ultrasound photo one more time. The little curve of spine, the round skull. Some baby that would be born in February to my wife and my subordinate officer, while the whole battalion watched to see if their commander would be a man or a coward. I'm going to find out the truth, I said. Every detail, every lie, every moment she chose him over me while I was bleeding for my country. I handed the flask back to Mac. And then I'm going to protect my son, because Ryan doesn't deserve this. None of this. And Sullivan? I smiled, but there was nothing warm in it. Sullivan violated the military code. He slept with his commanding officer's wife, while that officer was deployed in combat. I picked up the challenge coin from the dashboard, rolled it between my fingers one more time, then crushed it in my fist. The metal bent. My palm bled. His career is over. He just doesn't know it yet. The next morning, I sat in my office at battalion headquarters, surrounded by evidence I wished didn't exist. On my desk, 37 deployment letters Jessica had sent me over 9 months. I brought them from home while she slept, laid them out chronologically like a crime scene investigation. My office was standard military issue, metal desk, filing cabinets, motivational posters about honor and duty that suddenly felt like lies. The one personal touch was a shadow box on the wall, 3 sets of dog tags. My grandfather's from World War II, darkened with age. My father's from Vietnam, scratched but clear. Mine from current service, shiny stainless steel. All 3 said O'Brien, Catholic, blood type. 3 generations of soldiers who understood what honor meant. Or so I'd thought. Letter 1 was 2 pages long, front and back. Jessica's looping handwriting covering every inch. Purple ink, she always used purple ink, said it made the letters more personal. The paper still smelled faintly of her lavender perfume. Dear Tom, I miss you so much. The bed feels empty without you. Ryan asks about you every night. He wants to know when you're coming home. I tell him you're keeping us safe, that you're the bravest man I know. I love you. I love you. I love you. Come home to us. Your Jessica. I set it aside carefully. The paper had that specific texture of stationery from the base exchange. Slightly textured, nice quality. Letter 15. 1 page. The perfume smell was gone. Dear Tom, hope you're well. Ryan's fine. Weather's been nice. The FRG is planning a care package drive. I signed up to help coordinate. Captain Sullivan is the liaison officer. Very professional. Very helpful. Miss you. Jessica. Letter 20. Half a page. Dear Tom, got your last message. Glad you're safe. Ryan made honor roll. I joined a book club. Everything's fine here. Don't worry. J. Letter 30, a single paragraph. Tom, thanks for checking in. We're managing. See you when you see you. J. She'd stopped saying I love you after letter 14. Stopped signing your Jessica after letter 18. By letter 30, she signed with just her initial, like writing to a stranger, like checking off a duty roster. I spread them all out, looking for the pattern. The gate security reports were next to them. 23 entries showing Derek Sullivan's name, his signature, the dates and times. I cross-referenced. Letter 15, Captain Sullivan is very helpful, was written 2 days after his 3rd visit to my quarters. That was early May, month 2 of deployment. By letter 20, he'd been there 8 times. By letter 30, when she signed with just J, Derek had logged 14 visits. Always evening? Always 2 to 3 hours. I was reading these letters in a firefight in Kandahar, thinking my wife loved me, thinking my family was safe. Father Michael Donnelly, the base chaplain, knocked on my open door. He's 62, white hair, gentle eyes, been counseling military families for 20 years. Tom, Max said you needed to talk. Come in, Father. Close the door. He did, settling into the chair across from my desk. His eyes went to the letters spread out like evidence. Are those my wife's letters from deployment? I pushed letter 1 toward him, then letter 30. Read these. Tell me what you see. He read slowly, carefully. When he finished, he looked up at me with something like grief in his expression. She stopped being your wife somewhere in the middle. Month 4, I said. That's when the coldness started. Month 5 is when the baby was conceived. I showed him the ultrasound photo. She's 16 weeks. I was in Kandahar. Father Donnelly closed his eyes for a moment. Tom, I need to tell you something. Pastoral confidentiality normally prevents me, but I think, given the circumstances, you need to know. He took a breath. Jessica came to see me in June, early June, month 5 of your deployment. My hands stilled on the desk. What did she want? She asked about annulments, wanted to know how long it took, what the process was. His voice was gentle but firm. She said she'd made a mistake marrying into military life, that she couldn't handle the deployments anymore, that she wanted out. Month 5. The month the baby was conceived. The month Derek Sullivan's visits increased from once a week to twice a week. Did she mention anyone else, another relationship? Not directly, but she said she'd met someone who understood her better. Someone who didn't choose the military over family. Father Donnelly leaned forward. Tom, I told her that running from problems doesn't solve them, that marriage is a commitment. She thanked me and left. I haven't seen her since. I picked up letter 20, the one where she mentioned the book club. She told me everything was fine, that she was keeping busy, that I shouldn't worry. People lie best when they're lying to themselves first, Father Donnelly said quietly. Mac appeared in the doorway, knocking twice on the frame. Sir, got something you need to see? He came in, closed the door, handed me a manila envelope. Gate security. I asked them to print everything official. Full records. Inside was a printout on security letterhead. Standard military form, black ink on white paper that had been handled enough to have slight wrinkles at the corners. The paper smelled like office equipment, burnt coffee, toner, floor cleaner. 23 entries. Derek Sullivan's name. His signature every time. That distinctive flourish on the S. The precise dot over the I. Dates, times, purpose of visit. May 3rd, 6:15 p.m., 8:45 p.m. Purpose, family readiness check-in. May 10th, 7 p.m., 9:30 p.m. Purpose, FRG coordination. May 17th, 6:30 p.m., 9 p.m. Purpose, assist with home maintenance every Tuesday and Thursday, 2 to 3 hours each time. And then I saw it, the pattern I'd been dreading. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to my call logs from deployment. The satellite system kept records. May through July, I'd called home 43 times. Gotten through 28 times. Communications in Kandahar were spotty at best. The rest went to voicemail or disconnected mid-call. On 16 of the nights I couldn't get through, couldn't reach my wife, couldn't talk to my son, sat alone in my bunk wondering if they were okay. Derek Sullivan signed in at the gate within an hour, like he was waiting for confirmation I couldn't call, like he had my communication schedule. He knew, I said out loud, my voice barely controlled. He knew when I couldn't reach her. He timed his visits. Mac's face was stone. Gate guard, guy named Peterson, was in basic with me. He said Sullivan would check his watch when he arrived, like he was on a schedule, like he had somewhere he needed to be. With my wife. I set the printout down carefully, trying not to crumple it, trying not to put my fist through the desk. In my quarters, while my son was doing homework in the next room, while I was taking fire in Afghanistan. Father Donnelly touched one of the letters. These stopped being love letters in month 4. The affair likely started emotionally before it became physical. And the baby? I pulled out the ultrasound photo again, that slick thermal paper with its undeniable date stamp. The baby was conceived in month 5, June, when Jessica was asking about annulments, when Derek was visiting twice a week. 16 weeks back is mid-June, Mac confirmed. He'd done the math, too. I looked at the 3 sets of dog tags on my wall. My grandfather had earned his on Omaha Beach. My father earned his in the jungles of Vietnam. I'd earned mine through 3 combat tours, through blood and brotherhood, and holding the line when it would have been easier to break. And my wife had spent my deployment falling in love with my subordinate officer, planning her exit while I planned our survival. "What are you going to do?" Father Donnelly asked. I thought about Ryan, 13 years old, excited about being a big brother. I thought about my mother, already planning baby showers. I thought about Jessica's smile at the homecoming ceremony, that Tiffany box with its miracle baby note. "I'm going to protect my son," I said, "and I'm going to hold the line." Sunday morning, breakfast at our quarters. Jessica made pancakes, Ryan's favorite, and the kitchen smelled like maple syrup and butter. The family readiness group binder sat on the counter, army green with Jessica's name on the spine label, stuffed with meeting notes and contact lists. There was a coffee stain on the back cover. Ryan ate with the appetite of a growing teenager, drowning his pancakes in syrup. My mother sat across from him, smiling, asking about school. Jessica moved around the kitchen, touching my shoulder every time she passed, playing the perfect military wife. The ultrasound photo was propped against the salt and pepper shakers in the center of the table. Jessica kept glancing at it, that satisfied smile on her face. "So," she said, sliding into the chair next to me, "I was thinking we should start looking at names. If it's a boy, maybe we could name him after your father. Patrick?" Ryan looked up, eyes bright. "That would be cool. Little Patrick O'Brien." Or, Jessica continued, her hand finding mine on the table, We could name him after my father, James. Either way, an O'Brien. Right, Tom? Her smile was expectant. I mean, you'll adopt him officially, make him yours legally. It's the right thing to do. I looked at her, really looked at her. Her blonde hair was perfect, makeup careful. That blue dress again. She looked like a woman who had everything under control. A woman who thought she'd won. Ryan, I said quietly, keeping my eyes on Jessica. When I was deployed, did Mom have friends come over? Jessica's hand tightened on mine. Tom, I'm just curious. I kept my voice casual. Who checked on you guys while I was gone? Who made sure you had what you needed? Ryan shrugged, reaching for more pancakes. Captain Sullivan came over a lot. He was really nice. Helped Mom with the car when it wouldn't start. Fixed the garbage disposal. He brought pizza once. Did he stay long? I still hadn't looked away from Jessica. Her face was carefully neutral, but I could see the pulse jumping in her neck. Yeah, usually till like 9 or 10. He and Mom would talk in the kitchen while I did homework. He asked about school and stuff. Seemed like a good guy. Ryan's voice was innocent, completely unaware of what he was telling me. Why? Just wondering who was taking care of my family while I was gone. I turned to my mother. She was watching Jessica now too, her eyes sharp the way they get when she knows something's wrong. Mom, could you take Ryan to the park? I need to talk to Jessica alone. My mother stood immediately. Come on, Ryan, let's get some fresh air. But I'm not done eating. Now, Ryan. Her voice had that tone that meant, don't argue. Ryan knew it. He grabbed one more pancake and followed her out, confused but obedient. The door closed. Jessica pulled her hand away from mine. Tom, will the baby be a boy? I asked, my voice quiet, controlled. The same voice I used to brief soldiers before a dangerous mission. Will you teach him to be a soldier like you taught me? That's what Ryan asked last night. You remember? Of course I remember. Here's what I remember. I pulled the ultrasound photo from between the salt and pepper shakers. The thermal paper was starting to curl at the edges. I remember leaving for deployment on April 2nd. I remember 9 months in Kandahar. And I remember having a vasectomy 3 years ago, after your second miscarriage, when you begged me to make sure we'd never have to go through that pain again. Her face went pale. So tell me, Jessica. I set the photo down in front of her, pointing to the date stamp. How exactly are you 16 weeks pregnant when I left 7.5 months ago and I'm physically incapable of getting you pregnant? The silence was absolute. Outside, I could hear a lawnmower running, a car door slamming, normal Sunday sounds. Inside, everything had stopped. It's a miracle, she whispered. The doctor said, don't. I held up my hand. Do not lie to me, not anymore. I know about the visitor logs. 23 times. Captain Derek Sullivan came to our quarters 23 times during my deployment. Always evening visits. Always 2 to 3 hours. The nights I couldn't call from Kandahar, he was here within an hour. She stood up so fast her chair scraped the floor. He was helping me. He was the family readiness liaison. That was his job. His job was to check on families, once, maybe twice during a 9-month deployment. I pulled the gate security printouts from my pocket, unfolded them. The paper made that distinctive rustling sound. This isn't helping, Jessica. This is an affair. And month 5, June, that's when this baby was conceived. You can't know that. 16 weeks. That's exactly 4 months. June, month 5 of deployment. When you went to see Father Donnelly asking about annulments. When your letters stopped saying, I love you. When Derek Sullivan started visiting twice a week instead of once. Her hand went to her stomach, protective. Tom, when were you going to tell me? I stood up too, but I didn't move toward her. When were you going to tell me the baby isn't mine? Or were you just going to let me sign the adoption papers and pretend? Were you going to let our son grow up thinking he had a baby brother when it's really Derek Sullivan's kid? Ryan doesn't need to know. Her voice was desperate now. Nobody needs to know. We can just what? Live the lie? Let me raise another man's baby while the whole battalion knows I got cuckolded during deployment. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You handed me an ultrasound photo at my homecoming ceremony in front of 600 soldiers. Do you know how many of them did the math, Jessica? Do you know how many of them know exactly what this is? She wrapped her arms around herself. I never meant to hurt you. It just happened. He was here, you were gone, and you decided the military life was too hard, so you started an affair with my subordinate officer in my quarters while my son was in the next room. I picked up the deployment challenge coin from the counter, 9 months without you, engraved on bronze. I'd left it there last night after crushing it in my fist. This is insulting, Jessica. You gave me this coin at the ceremony. 9 months without you. Like you waited faithfully, like you suffered through my absence. I did suffer. No, you cheated. There's a difference. I set the coin down, grabbed the FRG binder from the counter. The vinyl cover was slightly rough under my fingers. You used your position as FRG coordinator to cover the affair, meeting with the liaison officer. Coordinating family support. You weaponized your role. Tom, please. Tears were streaming down her face now. I love you. I never stopped loving you. Derek was just... He was there when you weren't. It didn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything? I pulled the ultrasound photo up again, held it between us. You're pregnant with his baby, Jessica. You're carrying another man's child. And you expected me to adopt it, to give it my name, to raise it as an O'Brien. I walked to the wall where the dog tags hung in their shadow box. 3 sets, 3 generations. I touched the glass, and they shifted slightly, making that faint metallic clink. My grandfather earned these on Omaha Beach, I said quietly. My father earned these in Vietnam. I earned mine in 3 combat tours. The O'Brien name means something: honor, sacrifice, brotherhood. I turned to look at her. You don't get to give that name to Derek Sullivan's baby. You don't get to pretend that child is mine. What are you going to do? Her voice was small. I picked up the deployment challenge coin one more time. The bronze was cool in my palm, the edges sharp where I'd crushed it. I walked to the trash can and dropped it in. It made a hollow clank against the metal bottom. I'm going to protect my son, I said, and I'm going to hold the line. I found Derek Sullivan in the empty training facility Monday morning. The building smelled like floor wax and old sweat, that specific military gym smell that never quite goes away. He was alone, filling out paperwork at a folding table, still in his PT uniform. When I walked in, he looked up, and I watched his face go through every emotion in 3 seconds. Surprise, recognition, guilt, fear. He stood up so fast his chair scraped the concrete floor. Sir, At ease, Captain. My voice was level, military. I closed the door behind me. The sound echoed in the empty space. We need to talk, man to man, not commander to subordinate. He swallowed hard. I could see his Adam's apple move. Sir, how long? I walked toward him slowly, each footstep loud in the silence. How long have you been sleeping with my wife? I don't know what you... 23 times, Derek. I pulled the visitor log from my jacket pocket, threw it on the table between us. The papers scattered slightly. 23 times you signed in at the gate to visit my quarters during my deployment. 2 to 3 hours each time, always evening. Want to explain that? His jaw clenched. For a second, I thought he might try to lie. Then something in his face crumbled. She said you didn't love her anymore, that your marriage was over in everything but name. Did she? It wasn't a question. She said you chose the army over her, every time, that she was tired of being alone, that she made a mistake marrying into military life. He was talking faster now, words tumbling out. I thought I was helping her. She seemed so lost, so alone. So you decided to help by fucking her in my bed while I was in combat? It wasn't like that. What was it like, Derek? I took another step toward him. He backed up. Tell me. Paint me a picture. Did you help her with the dishes first, play cards with my son, tuck him into bed before you went into my bedroom? Ryan was always asleep or in his room. He never knew. He knew something was wrong. My voice rose despite my best efforts to control it. My 13-year-old son knew something was wrong with his mother. He thought it was his fault that he wasn't strong enough while I was gone. Derek's face went pale. You didn't mean to destroy a family? You didn't mean to betray your commanding officer? You didn't mean to violate every single article of military conduct? I was 6 inches from his face now. She's pregnant, Derek. Did you know that? His eyes widened. She told me she couldn't get pregnant, that you guys had tried and I had a vasectomy 3 years ago. So that baby she's carrying, that's your baby, your responsibility. I pulled out my phone, showed him the ultrasound photo. 16 weeks, conceived in June, month 5 of deployment when you were visiting twice a week. He staggered back like I'd hit him. No, we were careful. She said she was on birth control. Apparently she lied to both of us. I pocketed my phone. She handed me this ultrasound at the homecoming ceremony in front of 600 soldiers, expected me to adopt your baby, give it my name, raise it as an O'Brien. Jesus Christ. He sat down hard on the chair, put his head in his hands. I didn't know. I swear to God, sir, I didn't know she was pregnant. But you knew she was married. You knew I was your commanding officer. You knew the code. He looked up and there were tears in his eyes. She said you hit her, that you had PTSD episodes, that you were dangerous when you got angry. His voice was desperate now. She showed me bruises, sir, on her arms, said they were from you. The world tilted. What? I thought I was protecting her. From you. She said you'd threatened her, that she was scared to leave because you'd hurt Ryan. My fist was moving before I'd consciously decided to hit him. It stopped 6 inches from his face. Mac's hand locked around my wrist, appearing out of nowhere. Sir. Mac's voice was calm but firm. Don't. He's not worth it. I hadn't even heard Mac come in. But he was there, solid and steady, holding me back while I'm making the biggest mistake of my career. I took a breath, stepped back. My hand was shaking. Derek was pressed against the wall, eyes wide. She lied to you, I said, my voice low and deadly. I have never hit my wife. I have never threatened her. I don't have PTSD episodes. I turned to Mac. Tell him. Sir's been my commander for 12 years. Mac said flatly. Never raised his hand to anyone who didn't deserve it in combat. Never lost control. You were played, Sullivan. She needed a cover story and you bought it. Derek's face was white. But the bruises, probably from fucking you, Mac said bluntly. Or self-inflicted. Women like her. They know how to work a man, especially a young, ambitious officer who wants to be a hero. I could hear my breathing, could feel my pulse in my temples. Mac still had my wrist, keeping me anchored. Your career is over, I told Derek. You violated the Uniform Code of Military Justice. You conducted an affair with your commanding officer's wife while he was deployed. That's conduct unbecoming. That's betrayal of trust. That's the end of everything you've worked for. Sir, please... He was begging now. My family. My father's a founding elder at the base church. This will destroy... You should have thought about that before you destroyed mine. I pulled my arm free from Mac's grip, straightened my uniform. Colonel Hayes will be opening an official investigation. You'll be removed from this battalion immediately. And when the baby's born, you're going to take a paternity test. And when it proves that baby is yours, you're going to face the consequences. What consequences? Derek. My voice was almost gentle now, almost pitying. You got your commanding officer's wife pregnant while he was in combat. What the fuck did you think was going to happen? Tuesday afternoon, Colonel Patricia Hayes' office. She's 48, steel gray hair cut, military short, eyes that miss nothing. She's been my commanding officer for 2 years, and in that time she's become something like a mentor. She's one of the few senior officers who successfully navigated marriage and career. 23 years with her husband, 2 kids in college, and respect throughout the brigade. She sat behind her desk, the visitor log and my medical records spread out in front of her. Her legal officer, Captain Martinez, stood by the wall, taking notes. Lieutenant Colonel O'Brien, she said formally, I've reviewed the evidence you provided. Gate security logs showing 23 visits by Captain Sullivan to your quarters during your deployment. Your medical records showing a vasectomy 3 years ago. Your wife's ultrasound showing 16 weeks of pregnancy, which corresponds to month 5 of your deployment. Yes, ma'am. And you're requesting an official military investigation into Captain Sullivan's conduct during his assignment as Family Readiness Liaison? Yes, ma'am. I sat at attention in the chair across from her desk. He violated the code. He betrayed the trust of his commanding officer and the battalion, and he needs to face consequences. Hayes leaned back in her chair. It creaked slightly. Tom, off the record, how are you holding up? I'm fine, ma'am. Bullshit. Her voice was blunt but not unkind. Your wife is pregnant with another man's baby. That man is your subordinate. This is going to explode across the battalion. It probably already has. The gossip network on a military base moves faster than classified intel. She paused. So I'll ask again. How are you holding up? I met her eyes. I'm protecting my son, ma'am. That's my only priority. Ryan doesn't deserve to grow up in a lie. He doesn't deserve to watch his father pretend that baby is his when the whole battalion knows the truth. Your wife knows you're pursuing this? She knows I know about the affair. She doesn't know I'm requesting the investigation. Yet. Hayes nodded slowly. Once I open this investigation, it becomes official. Sullivan will be relieved of duty immediately. Your wife will lose her position as FRG coordinator. It's a conflict of interest. The whole thing will be on the record. She looked at me carefully. Are you prepared for the fallout? The gossip? The judgment? The way people will look at you? Ma'am, they're already looking at me. Half the battalion saw my wife hand me that ultrasound at homecoming. They did the math, same as I did. I kept my voice steady. I can either let them think I'm a fool who's going to raise another man's baby, or I can show them that honor still means something, that there are lines you don't cross. What about your wife? What's she saying? She wants me to adopt the baby, give it my name. She thinks this can all be swept under the rug if we just pretend hard enough. I pulled out the deployment challenge coin, the one I'd fished out of the trash. The metal was slightly bent where I'd crushed it. She gave me this at the homecoming ceremony. 9 months without you, like she'd been faithful, like she'd waited. Hayes took the coin, examined it. That's cold. Yes, ma'am. She handed it back. Here's what's going to happen. I'm opening the investigation today. Sullivan will be reassigned to headquarters duty pending the investigation. He'll be out of your battalion immediately. You'll be asked to provide testimony. So will your wife, though she's not subject to the UCMJ as a civilian dependent. She picked up a sealed plastic bag from her desk. Official military medical kit. Chain of custody forms attached. I'm also ordering a paternity test through Womack Army Medical Center. Official protocol. You, your wife, and Sullivan will all provide samples. He already admitted the affair, ma'am. I know. But we need proof of paternity for the official record. Once the baby's born, if the test confirms Sullivan is the father, he'll face a court-martial for conduct unbecoming an officer. She paused. It'll destroy his career, Tom. You know that. His family's been here for 3 generations. His father's a pillar of the community. He destroyed my family while I was bleeding for my country, ma'am. Turnabout's fair play. Hayes studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded. I'll start the paperwork. In the meantime, Tom, take care of yourself and your son. That boy needs at least one stable parent right now. Yes, ma'am. As I stood to leave, she added quietly, for what it's worth, you're doing the right thing. Holding the line, even when it costs you everything. I thought about my son, about the 3 sets of dog tags on my wall, about my father and grandfather who understood that honor wasn't just a word you said, it was a line you held even when the whole world told you to let go. Yes, ma'am, I said, I know. Wednesday morning, I met Father Donnelly and Mac in the chapel office. The room was small, quiet, wood-paneled with crosses on the wall and religious texts on the shelves. Father Donnelly had spread all 37 of my deployment letters across his desk, arranged chronologically. The purple ink stood out against the white paper, Jessica's looping handwriting covering page after page that got shorter and shorter. Mac had his flask out but wasn't drinking, just holding it, turning it over in his hands. The dent in the side caught the light from the window. Walk me through it again, I said, month by month. Father Donnelly adjusted his reading glasses. Letter 1 through 14, April through mid-May, are what you'd expect from a military wife during deployment. She misses you. She's counting the days. She tells you about Ryan's life, asks about your missions. The tone is warm, intimate, loving. He picked up letter 15, then this one, late May, month 2. The tone shifts. Still polite, still going through the motions, but the warmth is gone. She stops saying, I love you. Stops signing, you're Jessica. And look, he pointed to a line. Captain Sullivan is very professional, very helpful. That's the first time she mentions him by name. That's when the emotional affair started, Mac said quietly. She was already thinking about him, already comparing you to him. Father Donnelly nodded. Letters 16 through 20, June, month 3, get progressively shorter. She's going through the motions, writing because she has to, not because she wants to. She mentions the book club. He picked up letter 18. Here, I joined a book club. It's nice to have friends who understand what I'm going through. Was there a book club? I asked. Mac shook his head. My wife's been in the FRG for 8 years. There's no book club. That was code for something else. Probably meeting Derek. Then comes June, Father Donnelly continued. Month 5. That's when she came to see me about annulments. Early June. The same month the baby was conceived. He pulled out his calendar, showed me the date he'd written, June the 4th, 2025. She was already planning her exit, Tom. The affair had gone from emotional to physical. She was thinking about divorce. I looked at the letters from June. 22, 23, 24, each one shorter than the last. By letter 24, it was just a paragraph. Got your message. Everything's fine. Don't worry. July through September, Father Donnelly said softly. She barely writes at all. When she does, it's perfunctory, checking off a box. By the end, she's signing with just J, not even her full name. Mac picked up the last letter, number 37, September. 8 words. Tom, everything's fine here. See you soon. That's it. That's the entirety of her communication while you were on patrol in some of the most dangerous territory in Afghanistan. I spread my hands over the letters, looking at them all laid out, a timeline of betrayal in purple ink. I read these in my bunk, in the phobby, after firefights. I'd read them and think my wife was missing me, that she was being strong for Ryan, that she was waiting for me to come home. She was waiting, Father Donnelly said gently. Just not for you. She was waiting to see if Derek was serious, if he'd actually commit, if she could make the jump from one life to another without losing security. And the baby? I asked. Was that planned? Mac shrugged. Derek said she told him she was on birth control. She told you she couldn't get pregnant because of the miscarriages. My guess? She got careless. Or hopeful. Maybe she thought a baby would force Derek's hand, make him commit. Instead, it trapped her, Father Donnelly said. She's pregnant with his baby, but she's married to you. So she came up with a plan. Make you think it's a miracle. Get you to adopt. Give the baby your name and your benefits. Keep the security of military life while keeping Derek on the side. I closed my eyes, opened them. She's not going to get away with it. No, Mac agreed. She's not. He unscrewed his flask, took a drink, offered it to me. This time I took it. The whiskey burned going down. Sir, there's something else you need to know. Jessica's been talking to the other FRG wives, spreading her version of the story. What version? That you have PTSD, that you're not thinking clearly since you got back, that the deployment changed you, made you paranoid and jealous. Mac's voice was hard. She's weaponizing your service, sir, trying to make you look unstable so when the truth comes out, people will think you're the problem. Father Donnelly nodded. I've heard it too. Some of the women in the Church Ladies Auxiliary are talking. They're saying Jessica needs support, that you're being difficult about the pregnancy. Of course she is, I said bitterly. Can't admit she had an affair, so make me the villain, the damaged soldier who came home broken. I looked at the letters again, all that purple ink, all those lies. How many people believe her? Some, Mac admitted, the ones who don't know you well, but the NCO wives, the ones who've been around, who know what leadership looks like, they're not buying it. My wife Mary is already pushing back. So are others. This is going to get ugly, Father Donnelly warned. When Colonel Hayes opens the investigation, when the truth comes out officially, this base is going to split into camps. Some will support you, some will support Jessica. It's going to be... The office door opened. We all turned. It was my son, Ryan, still in his school clothes, backpack on his shoulders, face pale. Dad? His voice was small. I need to talk to you. I sent Mac and Father Donnelly away. Ryan sat in the chair across from the chaplain's desk, his backpack still on, like he was ready to run. His hands were clenched in his lap. What's wrong, buddy? I found something. He pulled papers from his backpack, my deployment letters, all 37 of them, the ones I'd laid out this morning, then put back in the storage box at home before going to work. I was looking for my old wrestling certificate, for a school thing. These were in the same box. My chest tightened. Ryan, I read them, Dad. His voice cracked. I read all of them, starting from when you first deployed. He spread them out on the desk the way I had earlier, his young hands shaking slightly. Letter 1, letter 14, letter 30. He picked up number 15. This is when she stopped saying, I love you, month 4. That's May. Ryan, you shouldn't have. That's when she got mean to me. He looked up and his eyes were red, not crying, but close. Month 4. She stopped asking about my homework, stopped caring about wrestling, started snapping at me for little things. She'd lock herself in her room, and I'd hear her on the phone, laughing, happy with whoever she was talking to. Buddy, I thought it was my fault. His voice broke completely now. I thought I wasn't being strong enough. She kept saying, you need to be the man of the house while Dad's gone. And I tried, Dad. I really tried. But nothing I did made her happy. And I thought... He wiped his eyes roughly. I thought I was failing you, that I wasn't taking care of her like I was supposed to. I moved around the desk, knelt in front of his chair, put my hands on his shoulders. Ryan, listen to me. None of this is your fault. Nothing. You were 13 years old. You were a kid. Still are a kid. It wasn't your job to make your mother happy. But she said she lied. The words came out harder than I meant them to. I softened my voice. Your mother lied to both of us. She stopped loving me in month 4. You can see it in the letters. She met someone else. She made choices, adult choices, and none of it was because of you. Captain Sullivan, Ryan said quietly. That's who she was seeing, wasn't it? He came over all the time, always asking how I was doing, being nice. I thought he was just doing his job. He was supposed to be. I sat back on my heels. Ryan, I need to tell you the truth, all of it. You're old enough and you deserve to know what's happening. I told him everything. The vasectomy, the impossible pregnancy, the visitor logs, the investigation, Derek's confession, Jessica's plan to make me adopt the baby. By the time I finished, Ryan was crying silently, tears running down his face. So the baby, he said, it's not your baby, it's his. Yes. And Mom wants you to pretend it is, to give it our name, the O'Brien name. Yes. But you're not going to do that. I looked at my son, 13 years old enough to understand betrayal, old enough to see the truth. No, I said firmly. I'm not going to do that. The O'Brien name means something, Ryan. Honor, integrity, service. Your great-grandfather earned that name on Omaha Beach. Your grandfather earned it in Vietnam. I earned it through 3 combat tours. That name isn't something you give away. It's something you earn. Will the baby... He stopped, started again. Will they keep the baby? I don't know. That's up to your mother and Derek, but the baby won't have our name, and it won't be raised in this house. Ryan nodded slowly, wiped his face again. I want to stay with you. When you and Mom, when you divorce, I want to stay with you. The words hit me like a physical blow. Ryan. I mean it, Dad. His voice was stronger now. I know what honor means. You taught me. And she doesn't have it. She lied to you. She lied to me. She made me think I was failing while you were gone, and all along it was her. He stood up, and even though he's small for his age, even though he's just 13, he looked older in that moment. You did your job, Dad. You kept your guys alive. You held the line. She didn't do hers. I pulled him into a hug. He buried his face in my shoulder, and I felt him shake with sobs he'd been holding in for months. All that guilt he'd been carrying, all that self-blame. It poured out of him while I held him tight. You're strong, Ryan, I whispered into his hair. Stronger than I knew, and I'm so damn proud of you. Are we going to be okay? His voice was muffled against my uniform. I thought about the investigation, the divorce, the custody battle, the gossip, the judgment, the way the next few months were going to tear our lives apart. Yes, I said firmly, we're going to be okay, because we're O'Briens, and O'Briens hold the line. Thursday evening, the family readiness group meeting in the base community center. I wasn't there. Mac's wife Mary called me after, told me everything that happened. But I'll tell it the way she told me, because this is the moment the tide started to turn. 43 military spouses filled the room, mostly women, a few husbands whose wives were deployed. Jessica stood at the front in her role as FRG coordinator, that army green binder open in front of her, leading the discussion about the upcoming holiday care package drive. She looked perfect, hair done, makeup careful, wearing a loose sweater that was just starting to show her pregnancy. Playing the part of the devoted military wife, the strong woman holding down the home front. Before we talk about logistics, Jessica said, her voice just slightly tremulous, I want to address something personal. Some of you may have heard that my husband and I are going through a difficult time. She paused, touched her stomach gently. Tom came home from deployment changed. The experience in Afghanistan, it affected him. He's struggling with some PTSD symptoms, paranoia, anger, and he's having trouble accepting this pregnancy. Murmurs through the room, sympathetic looks. I'm asking for your support, Jessica continued, for patience. Tom is a good man and a great leader, but right now he's not himself. He's making accusations that aren't true. He's creating problems where there are none, and I'm worried. Her voice broke convincingly. I'm worried about what he might do. That's when Mary McAllister stood up. Mac's wife, 50 years old, been a military spouse for 28 years, seen more deployments than most soldiers. She has a voice like steel wrapped in velvet. Jessica, Mary said calmly, I've known Tom O'Brien for 12 years. I've watched him lead this battalion through 3 deployments. I've seen him at his lowest, at his highest, and everything in between. And I have never, not once, seen him display PTSD symptoms that would make anyone unsafe. Jessica's face tightened. Mary, you don't understand. I understand that you're spinning a narrative, Mary interrupted, and I understand why, but I'm not going to sit here and watch you weaponize mental health to cover your own actions. The room went dead silent. What are you talking about? Jessica's voice was sharp now. I'm talking about the fact that Tom was in Kandahar when that baby was conceived. I'm talking about the 23 times Captain Sullivan signed in at the gate to visit your quarters during deployment. I'm talking about the pattern of evening visits that everyone on this base knows about. Mary crossed her arms. You want to play the victim, fine, but don't you dare drag Tom's service through the mud to do it. That's completely inappropriate, Jessica started. Another woman stood. Carol Henderson, whose husband is a senior NCO. Mary's right. My husband told me about the visitor logs, about the investigation Colonel Hayes is opening, about the paternity test that's been ordered. She looked around the room. Some of us have known for weeks. We were waiting to see if Jessica would tell the truth herself. Apparently, she's decided to lie instead. A third woman stood, then a fourth. All of them senior military spouses, women who'd been through enough deployments to recognize bullshit when they heard it. Tom O'Brien is one of the best commanders this base has ever had, one said. He's never been anything but respectful and professional, another added. And you, Mary said, pointing at Jessica, are trying to destroy his reputation to save your own. It's not going to work. Jessica's face was white now. You don't know what you're talking about. Tom he's dangerous right now. He's not stable. The only danger here is your lies, Mary said flatly. She picked up her purse. I'm done with this meeting, and I'm calling for a vote of no confidence in Jessica as FRG coordinator. All in favor? 12 hands went up. Not all of them, but enough. Jessica staggered back like she'd been slapped. You can't. This is my position. I was voted in, and we can vote you out, Carol said. You used your position to cover an affair. You weaponized your role. That's a violation of the FRG charter. She looked at the other women. I second Mary's motion. The meeting dissolved into chaos after that. Women arguing. Some defending Jessica, the younger ones mostly, the ones who didn't know the code, who bought into the surface story. But the core group, the senior wives who understood what military life really meant, they walked out together. Mary called me from her car. Tom, you need to know. It started. The battle lines are being drawn. Some will support you. Some will support her. But enough of us know the truth now. Enough of us are willing to stand up. Thank you, I said, my voice rough. Tell the others thank you. Tom, one more thing. Mary's voice was gentle. Ryan's going to be okay. He's got your strength, and he's got all of us watching out for him. The O'Brien name still means something on this base. Don't you forget that. After we hung up, I sat in my truck in the empty parking lot and let myself feel it. The weight of the last week, the betrayal, the investigation, the gossip, the way my life had exploded in every direction, and the fact that I wasn't alone. That the brotherhood still meant something. That honor still meant something. I pulled out Mac's flask from where he'd left it on my dashboard earlier. Took a drink. The whiskey burned, and it felt like absolution. 2 a.m. I couldn't sleep. The house was quiet. Ryan asleep in his room. Jessica locked in the guest bedroom where she'd been staying since our confrontation. I'd been lying in bed for hours, staring at the ceiling, my mind running through every detail of the last 9 months, every mission, every firefight, every night I'd lain awake worrying about my family back home, every letter I'd read from Jessica, believing she was missing me, believing she was faithful. All of it was a lie. I got up, got dressed, walked out to my truck, drove to the empty parking lot outside battalion headquarters, and just sat there in the dark, windows down, November air cold enough to bite. That's where Ryan found me. He knocked on the passenger window. I nearly jumped. I'd been so deep in my own head I hadn't heard him approach. He was wearing my old army jacket over his pajamas, his bike leaning against the truck. "Ryan, what the hell are you doing out here at 2 a.m? "I woke up. You were gone. I tracked your phone." He held up his phone, showing "Find my friends." "Can I come in?" I unlocked the door. He climbed into the passenger seat, and we sat there in silence for a long moment. The dome light had clicked off automatically. The darkness felt safe. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked finally. "No." "Me neither." He pulled his knees up to his chest, wrapped his arms around them. "I keep thinking about the letters, about how I knew something was wrong but didn't want to see it, about how I blamed myself. Ryan, let me finish." His voice was quiet but determined. "I've been sitting in my room trying to pray, trying to figure out what I'm supposed to feel, and I realized I'm angry, Dad. I'm really angry. At her, at what she did to you, to us." I didn't say anything, just listened. "You were gone for 9 months, 372 days in a war zone. I marked them on my calendar every single day. And the whole time you were gone, you were worried about us, about keeping us safe, about coming home. That's my job, buddy. And her job was to be here, to keep our family together, to wait for you." His voice cracked. "But she didn't wait. She gave up, and then she tried to make it your fault. Said you chose the army over her, but Dad..." He turned to look at me in the darkness. "You didn't choose the army over us. You chose to protect people, to serve. That's not the same thing." My throat was tight. "Ryan, and now she wants you to just forgive her, to take her back, to raise another man's baby like it's yours. And everyone's saying you should do it, that you should be the bigger person, that real men forgive." He wiped his eyes roughly. "But that's not forgiveness. That's just being a doormat, right?" I took a shaky breath. When did my son get so wise? "I spent 9 months in Kandahar," I said finally, "keeping my guys alive. Martinez took a bullet. It should have been me. I carried him 3 miles to the evac bird. Rodriguez broke his leg on patrol. I stayed with him under fire until help came. I watched my guys bleed. I watched them hurt. And every night I'd come back to my bunk and read your mother's letters and tell myself it was worth it, that I had a family waiting for me, a wife who loved me, a son who needed me. I stopped, started again. Then I came home and found out it was all a lie, that while I was bleeding for my country, my wife was sleeping with my subordinate officer in our bed, while you were in the next room doing homework, and she wants me to just..." My voice broke. "She wants me to just accept it, to raise his baby, to pretend none of it happened." "But you can't," Ryan said softly. "No, I can't." I turned to look at him. "Ryan, I don't know how to fight this enemy. I know how to fight in combat. I know how to plan missions and lead soldiers and hold ground under fire. But this? A wife who betrays you? A subordinate who lies to your face? A whole base watching to see if you're man enough to forgive the unforgivable?" My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. "I don't know how to fight this." Ryan was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached over and put his hand on my arm. "You're already fighting it, Dad. You're telling the truth. You're holding the line. You're protecting our family's honor even when it costs you everything." His voice was steady. "You did your job. She didn't do hers. And that's not on you." Something broke in me then, the control I'd been maintaining since the homecoming ceremony. the military discipline, the commander's facade. It all cracked, and I felt tears burning in my eyes for the first time since I was Ryan's age. "I'm sorry," I managed. "I'm so sorry you have to go through this." "Don't be sorry." Ryan's voice was fierce. "You're the only one who doesn't need to be sorry. You're the one who stayed faithful, who did your duty, who came home and told the truth even when lying would have been easier." He squeezed my arm. "You're my hero, Dad. You've always been my hero, and that didn't change." I pulled him into a hug across the center console. He buried his face in my shoulder, and we both cried. Him for the family he was losing, me for the innocence he shouldn't have had to lose. "We're gonna be okay," I whispered into his hair. "I promise you, Ryan, we're gonna get through this." "I know," he said, "because we're O'Briens, and O'Briens hold the line." We sat there in my truck until the sky started to lighten, talking about everything and nothing, about his wrestling season, about school, about whether we'd stay on base or move, about what happens next. And when we finally drove home together, Ryan on his bike beside my truck, the sun was coming up over Fort Bragg. A new day, a new battle, but we'd face it together, father and son, the way it was always supposed to be. Friday afternoon, military legal office. The room smelled like old paper and government-issue coffee. My lawyer, Captain Rachel Morrison from JAG, sat across from me with a stack of documents that represented the legal dismantling of my 13-year marriage. "The paternity test results came back," she said, sliding a sealed manila envelope across the desk. "Official seal, chain of custody forms." The paper was heavy, that government weight cardstock. "Are you ready?" I picked up the envelope. It weighed almost nothing, but it felt like holding a grenade. "Yeah." I broke the seal. It made a tearing sound that seemed too loud, and pulled out the report. Medical terminology, genetic markers, probability percentages, and at the bottom in bold print, probability of paternity 0.02%. Subject Thomas Ryan O'Brien is excluded as biological father. I stared at the number, 0%. Mathematical impossibility confirmed by science. "As we expected," Captain Morrison said gently. "Your vasectomy records were conclusive, but this removes any doubt. You are definitively not the biological father of your wife's child." "Does Jessica know?" "She was notified this morning. So was Captain Sullivan." Morrison pulled out another document. "Sullivan's results show 99.97% probability of paternity. He is the biological father." I set the report down carefully, smoothed it with my palm. "What happens now?" "Now we file for divorce on grounds of adultery. North Carolina is a fault state. Her infidelity is documented, the affair is proven, and the paternity test confirms the timeline." She pulled out divorce papers already filled in. "We're also filing for full physical custody of Ryan, with Jessica getting supervised visitation. Given that she conducted an extended affair in the family home while your minor child was present, the court will likely side with us." "And Sullivan?" "Colonel Hayes' investigation concluded yesterday. He's being charged under Article 133 of the UCMJ, conduct unbecoming an officer, specifically conducting an extramarital affair with his commanding officer's spouse while said officer was deployed in a combat zone." She pulled out another document. "He's been offered the choice between a court-martial or voluntary resignation with an other than honorable discharge." "Which will he choose?" "His lawyer called this morning. He's resigning. Effective immediately. His military career is over." Morrison's voice was matter-of-fact. "He'll also be required to provide child support once the baby's born. The court will determine the amount based on his civilian income, assuming he can find employment with an OTH discharge." I thought about Derek, 29 years old, ambitious, wanted to make major by 31. Instead, he'd be job hunting with a dishonorable discharge and child support payments to make. His father's going to be devastated, I said quietly. Raymond Holloway came to Colonel Hayes' office yesterday, Morrison said, asked to speak to you. She told him that wasn't appropriate during an active investigation, but she paused. He wanted you to know he's ashamed of his son, that he supports your decision to pursue justice. That hit harder than I expected. Raymond Holloway, founding elder at the base church, pillar of the military community for 40 years, and his son had destroyed all of it. What about Jessica? She's hiring a civilian lawyer. She'll fight the custody arrangement, but honestly, Tom, she doesn't have a strong case. She committed adultery, conducted an affair in front of your minor child, attempted to pass off another man's baby as yours, and when caught, spread false rumors about your mental health. Morrison tapped the stack of documents. The court will see through it. When's the first hearing? 2 weeks, December 1st. She'll be served with papers tomorrow. Morrison looked at me carefully. How are you holding up? I thought about the last 10 days, the investigation, the confrontation, the FRG meeting explosion, Ryan discovering the truth, the 2 a.m. breakdown in my truck. I'm protecting my son, I said. That's all that matters. You're doing the right thing. She started gathering the documents into folders. I know it doesn't feel like it. I know people are judging you, saying you should forgive, that you should be the bigger person. But Tom, what you're doing is drawing a boundary. You're saying there are lines that can't be crossed. And that's not weakness. That's strength. I picked up the paternity test report one more time. 0%. Definitive proof that my wife had betrayed me completely. My son asked me yesterday if we're going to be okay. I said quietly, you know what I told him? What? That we're O'Briens, and O'Briens hold the line. I stood up, tucked the report into my jacket, even when it costs us everything. That evening, I drove to my mother's house off base. She lives in a small 2-bedroom that my father bought with his military pension before he died of cancer 10 years ago. The porch light was on, and I could see her through the window, sitting in her chair by the fireplace. She opened the door before I could knock. I made coffee, she said simply. Come sit. Her living room was full of my father's memory, his photos on the walls, young and strong in his Vietnam-era uniform, older and weathered at retirement, smiling with my mother on their 40th anniversary, his medals in a shadow box, his reading chair that nobody else ever sat in. And on the mantel, folded in a perfect triangle, was his battalion colors. The flag he'd carried through 2 tours in Vietnam. Brown stains visible on the white stripes, blood from 1968 during the Tet Offensive when he'd helped evacuate wounded Marines under fire. Mom handed me coffee in my father's old army mug. It was chipped at the rim, the print faded, but she'd never thrown it away. You look tired, Tommy. I am tired, Mom. She sat in her chair, the one across from Dad's empty one. Tell me what's happening. All of it, not the sanitized version. So I did. I told her about the paternity test, about Sullivan's resignation, about the divorce papers being served tomorrow, about the custody battle, about the change of command ceremony coming up in 1 week, where I'd have to stand in front of the entire brigade and pretend everything was normal. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she stood up and went to the mantel, took down my father's flag. The fabric was heavy in her hands, the nylon worn soft with age. She carried it over and sat beside me on the couch. Your father carried this through hell, she said softly, touching the bloodstains. April 68, Tet Offensive. His platoon was pinned down trying to evacuate a field hospital. He took shrapnel in his leg. You can see it here. She pointed to a tear in the fabric, carefully mended. But he held the line, kept the enemy back while they loaded wounded onto choppers, bled all over this flag. I touched the stain. The fabric was stiff where blood had dried and been washed out, decades old but permanent. When he came home, Mom continued, he was different, quieter. He'd wake up in the middle of the night sometimes, and I'd find him out here holding this flag, just staring at it. She looked at me. One night I asked him why. Why hold on to this thing that reminded him of so much pain? What did he say? He said, Maggie, this flag represents the values, not the people. People fail. People break. People betray each other and lie and run away when things get hard. But the values, honor, courage, sacrifice, those don't fail. Those are what matter. She pressed the flag into my hands. He told me if he ever came home broken, if the war destroyed him, the flag would still fly. Because what it represents is bigger than any one man's failure. I held my father's flag, feeling the weight of it, the years of service, the blood and sacrifice. Jessica failed you, Tommy, Mom said quietly. She broke her vows. She betrayed your trust. She chose comfort over commitment. That's her failure, not yours. People are saying I should forgive her, that I should take her back, that real love doesn't mean being a doormat. Mom's voice was firm. Real love has boundaries. Your father loved me for 43 years, and you know why it worked? Because we both held our lines. We both kept our promises. When things got hard, and they did get hard, especially during his deployments, we chose each other. Every day. She didn't choose you, Tommy. She chose herself. What about the baby? That baby deserves parents who actually want to raise it. Not a father who was forced into it and a mother who used it as a manipulation tool. She touched my face the way she used to when I was Ryan's age. You're not responsible for fixing her mistakes. Ryan wants to stay with me, full time. Of course he does. He knows what honor looks like. You taught him that. She squeezed my hand. Your father would be so proud of you. Not because everything worked out perfectly, but because when faced with the choice between easy and right, you chose right. I looked at the flag in my hands. My father's blood still visible on the white stripes. 3 generations of O'Brien men who understood that holding the line sometimes meant letting go of people who refused to stand with you. Keep it, Mom said. Carry it with you. And when you stand up at that ceremony next week and the whole brigade watches to see if you'll break, you show them what O'Brien men are made of. I folded the flag carefully, the same triangle fold we use for military funerals. Thank you, Mom. For what? For teaching me that strength isn't in holding on. It's in knowing when to let go. December 15th, the change of command ceremony. Clear blue sky, temperature in the low 40s, wind that made the flag snap like rifle shots. The entire brigade was assembled on the parade ground, over 1,000 soldiers in formation, families in the bleachers, base command on the reviewing stand. I stood at attention in my dress uniform, waiting for my turn to speak. In 1 week, I'd officially hand over command of my battalion to Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Chen. After 16 years of service, after 3 combat tours, after building this unit from the ground up, I was stepping aside for a 6-month sabbatical. Colonel Hayes had insisted, said I needed time to heal, to rebuild, to focus on my son. In the front row of the bleachers, Ryan sat in his JROTC uniform, shoulders back, face solemn. Next to him, my mother in her Sunday best. Mac and his wife, Mary, Father Donnelly, the senior NCO wives who'd stood up at the FRG meeting, a whole section of people who'd chosen to stand with me. Jessica wasn't there. She'd been served with divorce papers 3 days ago. She was living off base now in a rental apartment, her position as FRG coordinator officially terminated. The baby was due in 10 weeks. Derek was job hunting with an OTH discharge, trying to figure out how to support a child on civilian wages. The battalion colors flew on the stage behind me, my father's flag, the one Mom had given me. I'd requested special permission to display it today alongside our battalion colors. Colonel Hayes had approved immediately. Lieutenant Colonel O'Brien, the Master of Ceremonies announced. Your remarks, sir. I stepped up to the podium. 1,000 soldiers looked back at me. I'd prepared notes, yellow legal pad pages, carefully written, then crossed out and rewritten a dozen times. But standing there looking at my guys, I set the notes aside. When I took command of this battalion, I began, my voice carrying across the parade ground through the speakers, I believed I understood what leadership meant, what honor meant, what holding the line meant. I paused, let the words settle. I was wrong, or at least I was incomplete. A slight murmur through the formation. This wasn't the standard change of command speech. This was something else. I spent 9 months in Afghanistan with you. We bled together. We lost friends together. We held impossible ground under impossible odds together. And every night I'd go back to my bunk and read letters from home and tell myself it was worth it, that I had a family waiting, that what we were doing here mattered. I could see Ryan in the front row. His hands were clenched in his lap. Then I came home and discovered that while we were holding the line in Kandahar, someone was crossing a different line here, a line that should never be crossed, a line that's supposed to be sacred in the military community. The silence was absolute now. Everyone knew what I was talking about. The gossip had spread through the base like wildfire. I learned something these past few weeks, I continued. I learned that holding the line doesn't just mean standing firm in combat. It also means drawing boundaries in life. It means saying there are some betrayals that can't be forgiven by pretending they didn't happen. Some violations of trust that can't be swept under the rug for the sake of appearances. I looked at the battalion colors, my father's blood still visible on the white stripes. My father carried that flag through Vietnam, I said, pointing to it. He bled for it in 1968, and he told my mother something I never fully understood until now. He said the flag represents the values, not the people. People fail. People break their promises. People betray each other when things get hard, but the values, honor, courage, integrity, sacrifice, those don't fail. Those are what matter. I gripped the sides of the podium. I'm not going to stand here and pretend everything is fine. I'm not going to give you the standard speech about tradition and duty and passing the torch. Instead, I'm going to tell you the truth. The truth is that I failed to protect my family from someone who violated the code. The truth is that betrayal happened, and it happened while I was deployed, and it hurt like hell. Ryan was crying now. So was my mother. But they were both sitting straight, shoulders back, listening. But I didn't fail at holding the line, I said, my voice stronger now. Because holding the line means protecting what's sacred, even when it costs you everything, even when it costs you your marriage, even when it means standing up here in front of all of you and admitting that not every battle has a clean ending. I looked out at my battalion, at Mac in the front rank, standing at perfect attention, at the soldiers I'd led through 3 deployments, at the families in the bleachers who'd sacrificed so much. I learned that leave no man behind doesn't mean protecting those who abandon their post, I said quietly. It means we protect those who stand in the line with us, those who keep their promises, those who honor the code. And when someone betrays that code, when they leave you behind while you're in combat, they've already left themselves behind. I picked up my father's flag from where it rested on the podium, held it up so everyone could see the bloodstains. This flag flew over my father's worst day, his most painful sacrifice, and it still flies, because what it represents is bigger than one man's pain, bigger than one family's failure. I set it back down gently. I'm stepping aside for 6 months to rebuild, to heal, to be the father my son deserves, but I'm not broken, and neither is this battalion, because we know what the values mean, and we hold the line. The silence held for 3 heartbeats. Then Mac started clapping, slow, steady, deliberate. One by one, the entire battalion joined in, not polite ceremony applause, real applause. The sound of 1,000 soldiers saying, "We see you, we understand, we stand with you." Ryan stood up in the bleachers, saluting. My 13-year-old son in his JROTC uniform tears streaming down his face, holding a perfect salute to his father. I saluted back. And for the first time in 3 weeks, I felt like I could breathe. If you've ever had to choose between what looks good and what's true, between pretending everything's fine and admitting it's broken, just know you're not alone. Tom and Ryan chose truth when lying would have been so much easier. If this story moved you, if their courage meant something, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more stories about people who hold the line when it costs them everything, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one. 1 year later, a Saturday morning in December, cold enough to see your breath, but the sun was shining. Ryan and I stood at Section 60 of Arlington National Cemetery in front of my father's headstone. Sergeant Major Patrick Michael O'Brien, 1945-2015. Vietnam Veteran Silver Star, Purple Heart beloved husband and father. The inscription was simple, just like Dad would have wanted. Ryan was 14 now, taller than last year, voice starting to break. He wore my father's dog tags around his neck, the ones that had hung on our wall for so long. I'd given them to him 6 months ago after the divorce was finalized, after the custody battle ended with Ryan choosing to live with me full time, after Jessica had moved to another state with Derek and their baby daughter. We'd heard through the grapevine that Derek and Jessica's relationship was already crumbling. Turned out that an affair built on lies and desperation didn't make a solid foundation for a family. Who would have thought? But that wasn't why we were here. "You think Grandpa would be proud?" Ryan asked, his hand touching the cold stone. "I know he would be." Even though the family broke up? I put my hand on his shoulder. The family didn't break up, Ryan. She broke her promises. There's a difference. You and me? We're still a family. Grandma, Mac and Mary, Father Donnelly, all the people who stood with us. That's family too. Ryan nodded slowly. Then he looked up at me. "Did I earn these?" His hand went to the dog tags around his neck. "Or did you just give them to me because—" "Stop." I turned him to face me, my hands on both his shoulders. "Your great-grandfather earned those on Omaha Beach. Your grandfather earned them in Vietnam. I earned mine through 3 combat tours." I paused. "You earned them by standing in the line when your family fell apart, by choosing truth over comfort, by holding on to honor when it would have been easier to pretend. But I didn't do anything. You're the one who... You did everything that mattered. You stayed strong when your mother left. You forgave me for the pain this caused you. You chose to live with integrity, even when kids at school gave you shit about the divorce." I pulled him close. "You're an O'Brien, son, not just by blood. By choice, by character." He buried his face in my shoulder for a moment. When he pulled back, his eyes were wet, but he was smiling. "De oppresso liber, Dad. To free the oppressed." "What?" "Your unit motto. Special Forces, to free the oppressed." He touched the dog tags again. "You freed me from having to live in a lie. You freed yourself from a marriage that was killing you. That's what the motto means, right? Sometimes the person you need to free is yourself." I stared at my son, 14 years old and wiser than men twice his age. "Yeah," I said, my voice thick. "That's exactly what it means." We stood there together for a while, looking at my father's grave. In the distance, you could hear the sound of taps playing at another military funeral. The wind made the flags snap on the memorial poles. The sun felt warm despite the cold. "So, what happens now?" Ryan asked. "You're going back to active duty next month, right?" "Yeah, new assignment, stateside though. I made sure of that. I'm not leaving you again." "And Mom?" "She has supervised visitation rights, if you want to see her." I looked at him. "That's your choice, Ryan. Always your choice." He thought about it. "Maybe someday, when I'm ready, but not yet." "Fair enough." "And what about you? Are you okay? Are you happy?" Was I happy? I thought about the last year, the divorce, the custody battle, the 6-month sabbatical spent rebuilding my life and my relationship with my son, the therapy sessions where I'd finally dealt with the PTSD I'd been ignoring, the promotion to full colonel that came through last month, the new assignment at the War College where I'd be teaching future commanders about leadership and ethics, the dinner I'd had last week with Lieutenant Emma Rodriguez, the female officer from my old battalion, the one who'd befriended Ryan during the worst of it. Just coffee, just talking, just two people who'd been through different kinds of hell finding common ground. I'm getting there, I said honestly. It's not perfect, but it's real, and that's better than living a perfect lie. Ryan nodded. He understood. He'd lived both sides of it too. Come on, I said. Let's go home. We walked back toward the parking lot together. Ryan's bike was in the back of my truck. He'd insisted on biking part of the way this morning, said he needed the exercise before wrestling season started. My truck was parked under a tree, and I could see my father's battalion colors folded on the dashboard. I carried it with me everywhere now, a reminder of what mattered. Dad? Ryan asked as we reached the truck. Yeah, buddy? Remember what you told me last year about how O'Briens hold the line? I remember. I get it now. Holding the line doesn't mean never letting go. It means knowing what's worth fighting for and what's worth walking away from. He climbed into the passenger seat. You taught me that. I started the truck. The engine rumbled to life and the heater kicked on against the December cold. Through the windshield, I could see the cemetery stretching out before us. Row after row of white headstones. Thousands of soldiers who'd held different lines in different wars. Some had come home to ticker tape parades and happy families. Some had come home to pain and betrayal and broken promises. But they'd all held the line, in their own way, with whatever strength they had left. You know what your great-grandfather told me once? I asked as I put the truck in gear. I was about your age, having trouble with some kids at school. I asked him what it meant to be an O'Brien, what it meant to be a soldier. What did he say? He said, being a soldier isn't about never being afraid. It's about being afraid and standing anyway, about holding the line, not because it's easy, but because it's right. I looked over at Ryan, and being an O'Brien means understanding that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who won't stand with you. Leave no man behind, Ryan said quietly, but only the ones who stay in the line. Exactly. We drove out of the cemetery together, father and son, the morning sun catching on the dog tags around Ryan's neck. 3 generations of O'Brien men who understood what honor meant. Not perfection, not pretending, just holding the line when it mattered most. In my rearview mirror, I could see the flags flying over Section 60, snapping in the December wind. The same wind that had carried my father's battalion colors through Vietnam. The same wind that had blown across the parade ground at Fort Bragg when I'd stood up and told the truth. The same wind that would carry us forward into whatever came next. Because that's what O'Briens do. We hold the line. We tell the truth. We protect what's sacred. And when someone leaves the line, when they betray the code, when they choose comfort over character, we let them go. Not with hatred, not with bitterness, but with honor, with integrity, with the understanding that some battles are won by knowing when to stop fighting for people who won't fight for themselves. Ryan turned on the radio, some classic rock station. We drove home together through the winter sunlight, and for the first time in over a year, the silence between us felt like peace instead of pain. We were going to be okay, because we were O'Briens, and O'Briens hold the line.